Yeah. All right. Thank you all for your patience. Let's actually get started, why don't we? Um, as always, I appreciate everybody being very kind and generous with technical difficulties. It seems like there's always one. I actually just looked at the clock. We only got a 4 minute late start, which actually might be a record for me. Starting 4 minutes late is, I think, the earliest I've ever started an event. So we got that going for us. I got that going for me. You're all very kind. Thank you. I will do my usual little intro for anybody who is new to this. Welcome to NAWP. We do pronounce it NAWP, not at AWP. Um, for those of you who've been to these things before, you know my usual spiel. No shade to AWP. We love AWP. It's just that Jared and I can never go. So Jared Beloff and I started NAWP after making jokes for many years online about attending not at AWP instead. So then we made it an actual thing. Shout out to Jared. He can't join us tonight. The Zoom account is in his name, so hopefully it says the right name on your end. Every now and then people call me Jared because Zoom defaults to who owns it. Um, and joining us tonight, I am very excited. We didn't really purposefully do like an April is Poetry Month event, but then we sort of stumbled our way into one because we've been trying to get an event with Jane and Lauren for a while now. And like, April's perfect. Like, how better to support or to celebrate April is Poetry Month than Lauren Crawford and Jane Zwart. I won't take up too much time. I will get to it and toss it over to them here. Um, Lauren and Jane, I think this might have been in an email a very long time ago, but we traditionally just go alphabetically, which Jane is probably sick of. Um, always got to be the closer. Um, Although in the music, it was just Coachella weekend, and that's a big deal to be the closer there, right? So, you know, it depends on how you look at it. So Lauren, thank you for your patience and getting a functional link and getting in here. I will read a short bio and then toss it your way. Is that okay? So just want to make sure since we had the tech difficulties. All right, let me pull it up here. And all the tech snafus, I lost my bio's email. 1 second. Uh, Here we go. All right. Lauren Crawford is the author of Catch and Release, very brand new from Cornerstone Press. She was awarded the 2023 Willie Morris Award and the 2024 Blue Earth Review's Dog Days Summer Contest Award. She's also a recipient of fellowships from the Longleaf Writers Conference and the Connecticut Office of the Arts. Her poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in Best New Poets, Poet Lore, Passenger's Journal, Prime Number Magazine, SoFlo Pojo, say that once fast, the Florida Review, and elsewhere. She currently serves on the editorial teams of Iron Oak Editions and Palette Poetry. Lauren, thank you very much for being one of our April readers. I throw the mic over to you.
Thank you so much, Mitch, and thank you so much for having me here to read and share new poetry with you guys. So this is my debut collection. It's called Catch and Release. It's with Cornerstone Press. It's a teaching press. I really enjoyed their work there, especially because I got to work with students, and I was once a student in an MFA program and in a BFA program. And I really did enjoy using this project to usher in the new generation of poets and writers. So my thanks goes out to Cornerstone Press. This collection is a lot about grace and about accepting the past for what it is and understanding what it means to be rebellious, and that maybe a person who is rebellious is not always bad, and really just about loving yourself. So let's see which poems I want to talk about. A lot of these poems center around my father, who died, unfortunately, years ago. When I was a teenager, he took his own life, and before that, he suffered from addiction. And a lot of these poems just kind of process that grief and a lot of his past and my past, and also surrounded by a traditional Southern value theme. So let's read. I think I'm going to go backwards. and read some of the later poems first. So this one is called The Music in Silence. If silence is rest and rest is music, then the dead can sing, and the song I hear from that quiet cemetery belongs to my dead father, singing like a cowboy whose voice caroused between mountain tops. He sings like an animal who will never find a mate. In the morning, he sings like the hum of dragonflies who putter the cattails as if they were keys on a piano. He sings like nothing is his. He sings like wind streams whistling through the arms of river gum trees, bearded with Spanish moss. The cord rattles their trunks, shooing the screech owls from their roosts. The rain is his conductor. He sings like a brook that will never dry up or clog with duckweed slush. He plays the bulrush reeds as if they were chimes. His deep, low trill sifts through the fog like silt through a net. He sings like a blind night bird. He sings like the valley behind him is his flute. He funnels the open sky for air so he'll never once need to pause for breath. I hear him now beneath my feet while I cover his grave with hay, shushing his tune. Still, it drags me home like a sail that will never find land, like a string with me tied to the end. Thank you. Um, the next poem I'm going to read is called Burial, and it's inspired by a lot of like nature poems and a lot of nature images. And one thing about this collection is that it has a lot to do with nature. And I absolutely love using wildlife and plants and flora in my poetry. And so this poem kind of visualizes what that means as you watch somebody die. It's fall in the garden, and the leaves on the basil freckle with black. I am thinking of the signs of my father dying. It's easy enough to see in my plants. The cilantro, albeit cold clever, eventually blossoms with seed one crisp January morning. Its leaves, like a diseased heart, grow smaller and smaller, duller and duller, until it can do nothing but shove the white flowers, tiny as a pin, up to the sky in clear, utter surrender. I'm ready to die, they all seem to say. Here is my father in the kitchen, bent over the sink, his guts spewing from his gills. Later, he sips tea and loses the strength to hold up a paperback. Slurs siphon his tongue, like the ones I serenade to the moon, slinking the salamanders to sleep. I know how to lull down the clematis after she stutters into winter's submission. I speak death's language like a landlark to my bloomers at bedtime. At my tender words, chloroplast will quicken, water quitting cytoplasm for the safety of the roots, and any remaining sap unbraids from vacuole, sweet resin of the gods, and slowly rebrands as antifreeze. But father, when did your ribosomes rupture? Where did you begin unshackling the dregs of your breath? When did you start hating your life? Mine. Ours. Where were all your mitochondria when you decided to leave me, your only daughter? Where was your glucose, your sisters of sugar when I needed you? I understand my mother was not green at the time, none of us were. I too young and she a season too late. Maybe she balmed your lips with honey when she saw your end looming. A husband and another daughter later, she cultivated her green thumb as an insurance policy. Never again, she promised herself every night after you died. To this day and every year, her tomatoes are shockingly bulbous, her figs flourish under her careful tutelage, and her grapefruit tree towers so tall it lilts over the neighbor's fence, fruit promisingly sour and succulent. It's all so beautiful and heavy, a mother's clear proof that she will never let her family die again. You were there. I somehow knew it. The year she began transcribing the Delphinian's dialect to me, the Lupine's lingo. Now, deciphering death is as easy as instinct, at the cost of all the things you went without. Cover, warmth, light, love. So that was Burial. Once again, nature is a really prominent aspect of this collection, and I'm also happy to share some news about myself personally. After getting an MFA, I've decided to go back to school once again and get a degree in botany because apparently I still, even with poetry, can't get enough nature. So let's read another nature poem, and this poem won the Willie Morris Award, and I'm super proud of it. It's called Galveston. And Galveston is named after the Galveston Beach that lines the Texas coast towards the Gulf of Mexico. And if you know anything about that beach, it is the filthiest beach that you will probably ever see. It's pretty disgusting. The water is always brown. It's not pretty. People trash it. But I wrote this poem because I connected to that trashiness in a way. I kind of viewed my guilt or my grief as trash for a while. At least that's how it felt inside of me. And so I hope you enjoy this poem. It's called Galveston. That Houstonian swamp, intimate with the Gulf and her cries, shirling and foamy, the pocket beds of seaweed peppered with July picnic garlands and hollow firework shells, Hennessy bottle shards that gleam brighter than nail polish glaze. They stud the beach that I, so many, many times, have chosen as an escape from pitiful fights with my parents or lying boys, or even my own depression, hollering at gulls, nipping at perch gills, braided with bright fishing twine. Each bloody seam opened wide like a hand fan. There was the gleaned shore, hours before sunrise, its spoils of the night, tooth conches and whole gritty sand dollars, stowed fresh on every tourist shelf of the bay in neat rows, all labeled ocean novelty. There was my collection of oyster shells pre-shucked by the wide veins of jetty parting the major port like long, sharp fingers stretching into the Gulf, waiting to shake hands with the ocean. There was the warm prickle of sea spray behind my knees, and the rip current tumble dirtying my hair after a plunge. I want the pink and orange sky nestled atop the sun and bay like settled wine tannins. I want the sheer mist of Gulf royals lain on me like a mother's dense kiss. Sinful reams of starlight rooting me in the sand shift, the Atlantic's ever-changing nook. Give me the pelicans sunning on rotting dock posts infested with algae, waiting for the skittish minnows to ripple the surface. Give me the open dark water, ready to ambush oil rigs or breed hurricanes the shape of bad secrets. Give me waves the color of age itself, and let me gulp the salt-stained air after I've carved my name again into the crumbling deck rail of the wharf like I own the ceaseless swell of barnacle teeth and mullet leap. Like I could look at the foaming lips closing over the gannets, diving for shrimp, knowing that even if I swallowed the world whole in one massive gulp, offer my open throat, I would still be starving for more. Thank you. And do I have time for one more? Thanks. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Keep going.
Okay. This poem is called Self-Portrait as Hippopotamus. And by now, I'm sure it's no surprise at all that we're staying in nature and we're still talking about wildlife. So this one comes with an epigraph, and it is an African folk tale. In an African folk tale, the creator designed the hippopotamus to live on land in the beginning. For the hippo, something was not quite right. It longed to be in the water and soothe its leathery skin. One day, the hippo asked the creator to be allowed to live in the water, but the creator feared the hippo would eat all the water animals with its enormous mouth, an entire ocean in one gulp, if it could. The hippo made a promise to eat only plants and never a single fish. The creator agreed and granted the hippo permission to live in the water. To this day, hippos spread their dung with their feet to prove to the creator that there are no traces of fish bones and that they continue to keep the promise the ancestor made. Self-portrait. What message could I smear into the muck that says I never fed from the words of a good father? never hashed on a good time for a good girl. What can I curl into the cream of me that hasn't already been lost? You can boil my liver and wait for the steam to scent you the proof. Unstring my inner cords, and they'll spell the secrets of my sadness to you. My jaws are wide, and I have a vicious snap, it's true. But do I not still deserve the taste of water when I dream of a sinless father? I was raised by a predator to be a predator, a pup in a wolf's den, the instinct of kill and fight nurtured deep within me. I'm forever waiting for the absolution of water. When it rains, I ditch my DNA harking me to hunt and expose my hide for the downpour. When we refer to water, we call it a body. What was that saying about forgiveness? Something the Christians like to say. We come from water, we are baptized in water, we are reborn in water. Angels of rain and shadow, flick your magic my way and grant me passage to the gates of your blessed pools. Anoint me and anoint me like your soldiers clad in thunder darkness. Let me feast on something that doesn't cost the life of another being, the meat of another soul. When you're ready to open your home, douse for me with a forked antler bone and come find me hiding beneath all the land dwellers' noses, where I've been taught to wait for the kill. Bring me back to where I should have been born. And thank you very much, everyone. It was an absolute pleasure to read with you guys. And I think, Mitch, hand over to you to introduce Jane.
Yeah. Lauren, thank you very much. That was outstanding. Yeah, bravo. Bravo's in the chat. Absolutely stellar work. And I was 1 semester shy of a botany minor. I'd already had a Spanish minor, so I decided to not stick around for 6 years of undergrad, but I think we poets tend to be drawn that direction. So I love to hear that. That's great news. All right, next up is Jane Zwart. Jane's bio is here we go. Jane Zwart teaches at Calvin University and co-edits book reviews for Plume. Her poems have appeared in Poetry, The Southern Review, Three Penny Review, Had, and Plowshares. And her first collection of poems is coming out with Horizon Books in fall of 2025. Hoping for news of a pre-order link any day now, Jane. So be sure to share that. We'll toss that onto the NAWP socials as soon as that's available. So, Jane, we toss it over to you. Thank you for reading with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Mitch, for inviting me. And thank you, Lauren, for your poems. I loved hearing them in your own voice. And thank you to everyone who's here. I'm going to start with, a set of poems, all of which are going to be in the book when it appears. The book is called Oddest and Oldest and Saddest and Best. So I'm not reading that one, which is one of them. But I'm going to start with a poem called Go Back to Your Own Country. It seemed relevant at the moment, and it first appeared in Contemporary Verse 2. Go back to your own country. Let me tell you about countries. Nobody has their own, and where we come from moves. Our mother's wombs aren't where we left them. Continents calve. Jerusalem holds a tray full of glasses that a scrum of men take and put back, take and put back, unworried for the weight she must shift. Let me tell you, some of our countries aren't where we left them. Someone pulls a string and six tumble from Yugoslavia's pocket. Someone halves Sudan like a branch over their knee. Someone crumbles a Bailey between Berlin's, and Germany is one place again. Only Adam had his own country, and he could not go back. A country is land that's learned to disown. Thanks. This one just came out in Amsterdam Review, and it's called Shambles and Sons. One way to sum us up, all of us, I mean, is to survey the mess we've made. I'm not saying there's nothing lovely left. I'm saying that in Europe, There are fields where buttercups know not to breach the rims of bomb craters in Antarctica. There are birds who don't know bottle caps from clams. And while it's impossible to know how it started, shambles and suns, whether as an observatory or armory, atom died a factotum. Zookeeper, embalmer, architect, priest. Well, from there we took on a life of our own. We took lives. We gave birth. And suddenly there were middens and archives, Caesars and towers, electricity, antiquities, theaters, mines. Before we knew it, Earthshine was a movie we'd projected on the moon. We said humankind was too big to fail. Rash shambles. We said the sun would never set on the Anthropocene. And this one's a little environmentally too. It's called I Read That the Moon is Rusting. And it appeared in Wildness first, but I want to give Jared a shout out because it also appeared in this anthology called Attached to the Living World, where Jared is my buddy. And W.J. Herbert, who is here, Wendy, also has a poem in that volume. And yeah, I think that they are both wonderful, as are many of the other people in there. So this is from that. I read that the moon is rusting. My son defines time, its river, not its measure, as the way one event changes into another. I am letting what my son knows of time climb and turn a laddered wheel in my mind. I am letting the river run the mill that changes one kind of knowing into another. Once a student told me that her mother kept vases of flowers long past their prime. She thought them still beautiful, wizened tulips, their petals knuckling into pecans. I read that the moon is rusting. Here on Earth, a breeze kicked up by passing cars, fans a dead katydid. Invisible thumbs shuffle her wings gauzy under things. One event is turning into another. My son grows tall, but is still young enough to trail a hand offhandedly in the current that carries him. There is so little we can demand from time, but I would ask to be like a tulip, like a katydid, like the henna-chinned moon, one of those who, done or undone, changes into another kind of wonder. Thanks. Okay, gonna veer a little more personal now. This is a therapy poem that came out in Bear Review a while ago, and it's called Harvest in the Dark. In therapy, I lay my cards on the table, ace of briefcases and reverse hermit, jack of all trades, queen of wind-up dolls. I play a tornado, a garbage pail kid, the 5 of cups. I am still trying to change. When I started this work, I thought the well willed themselves stable, pulling whatever their edges were toward a middle or a mean that they'd learn to solve for averages. I wanted what was average too. I figured I could split the difference, that halfway between the self who did not want to wake or wash and the one who overfunctioned, there must be a middle-aged woman in jeans getting on with what was. But a mother who rages because it's all too much. Famine and swimming lessons, bees dying, her boys checking each other's necks for ticks, and the child who cries because nothing is enough. Neither art nor protests cannot come to any intent, death being proof for both. because the mother is right and the child is right. A hermit cannot take a queen or a tornado an ace. I am still trying to change. Listen, between what is diametrical, there is a field of rhubarb growing so fervently that it creaks. And to preserve its sweetness, farmers harvest it in nothing harsher than moon or candlelight. Mitch, I didn't look when I started. I can do one more or two more.
I mean, all plenty. You have a lot of time.
Okay, great. This one is called Used Venison. A friend of mine, Dean Ward, who was once a professor of mine, let me read some of these stories that he wrote about his past for his daughter, which I'm not his daughter. I just kind of tagged along. But this one is for him. It's called Used Venison. Tonight I am borrowing a septuagenarian's life. His lap full of husks and silk, his friend running streetlights. They are rushing ears of sweet corn to boiling water. They are racing sugar's corrosion into starch. I am borrowing everything. The chrysalis a boy set on his dresser for its shape alone. The brief pet it bred. I am trying on a whole record of wonder. The child's an inning into summer. The groom's, his paisley a distraction to the Baptists. The old fellows. If this is life, who could earn their keep when he throws up his hands? There is a joy that helpless. I borrow it. I too have been loved more than makes sense. And this last one is called Stay Tender Somehow. Back when Twitter was Twitter, I followed Dina L. Rellis, among many other people. But every once in a while, she just put a little short, beautiful aphorism of good advice as a tweet. And one of them was Stay Tender Somehow. Yeah, and it lodged with me. So I wrote a poem about it. Stay tender somehow. Stay tender somehow, Dina writes, and I pick up my pencil. I wish I could call the place it comes to rest, the small and grooved knob on my fourth finger, a cradle, but it is a callus, stubborn as an uncooked lentil. I think about my grandmother's sleeping gloves, about how my aunt could not be entirely gentle, jimmying her mother's embalmed fingers into their silk appointed tunnels, saying she never slept soundly without them. I think about the tiny mitts that keep infants from scratching their faces, about how my sons, napping in summer, looked like prize fighters felled, high-waisted diapers and flimsy shorts, hands balled inside gauntlets. Some blessings, fire and backfire, so sweetly. Stay tender is one. Thank you.
Jane, thank you so much. That image of the stay tender and then the image of them like boxers fighting, just fantastic. All right, Lauren and Jane, thank you both for reading. The standard NAWP format is you do a reading and then we see if anybody in the audience has questions. I, of course, always have questions, so I'll pause first and see if anybody in the audience wants to chime in. Either unmute yourselves or just drop it in the chat and I can read whichever works for you, because I know sometimes people kind of listen to these while they're cooking and things like that. So let us know if you have questions. If you don't, I've got a couple because I would love to hear more about Jane and Lauren's books. We'll pause here. If I ramble too much, audience, do you have any questions for Lauren and Jane? Skim the chat right quick. Right. I will jump in then. Feel free to, audience, feel free to jump in anytime or drop them in the chat. But Lauren and Jane, you both, well, Lauren has a brand new book. Jane's is forthcoming this October. Yes. Okay.
October.
I remembered. I knew it was in the fall. Um, I'm very curious because you're both outstanding poets, and then I'm always kind of fascinated once a phenomenal poet gets a collection. Who made the cut? Like, how did you determine this book? Like, which poems are in your books versus which lovelies had to get left behind? Like, how did you go about taking your phenomenal body of work and crafting it into a collection? Whichever one wants to go first, go for it.
Lauren, you should go first because your book actually exists.
Sure. I can say that this book took me maybe at least three, but probably somewhere between 3 to 4 years to write. I wrote it when I was getting my MFA, and during that time, I was kind of going through a culture shock because it was my first time leaving the South. And I had to do a lot of unlearning and relearning stuff. But it was just a big culture shock, especially coming from a traditional Southern household. And I once I the more time that I spent, the more space I was given to like process my grief over the death of my father and go through life a little bit as an individual rather than as a part of somebody's family. And a lot of poems I that didn't make it in this collection were either too depressing or they were like, I suppose, too stream of consciousness if you know what I'm saying. And so what went into this book was just a lot of practice and recognition and a lot of healing. And I definitely encourage anyone who likes to write during their process of healing. And I think I like to think of this book as an encourager of that. And I know that that process can be different for every person, but I do think that that's where a lot of really beautiful poetry can come from is through a process of healing, whatever that would be. Like if you're leaving, if you've lost somebody or you've lost an opportunity or whatever it is you've lost or whatever it is you're grieving over, there's always going to be that kind of influence in your writing when you're going through those different stages. And so that's kind of what influenced my book particularly. And yeah, if that makes any sense. So once I did that, I kind of just I listened to my mentors. I was lucky enough to have a lot of teachers and a lot of people who supported me at the time and when I was exploring poetry. And I did my best to listen to every single bit of feedback that I received, listen to everybody who was willing to read and look at the book and look at my poems. And I just kept challenging myself to do better and better. And that's what I did.
Mhm. And it worked.
So, Jane?
Yeah. So yeah, for a long time I have been trying to get a manuscript with a roof over its head. And so for a while there, I had three separate ones that I was sending to contests for first books and open reading periods. And yeah, Wendy, in addition to some other poetry kin, gave me good advice about sort of sequencing and figuring out what poems would like to be neighbors to each other and what poems should not try to live next door to each other at all. And yeah, I was not having success with that. And so after a while, I was talking to Christian Wyman, who is another poetry friend, and he very kindly said, just send me a stack of your favorite ones, and I'll tell you where the book is. And he did. So yeah, he went through and he was like, nope, not that one, maybe this one, you need to fix the ending, not that one. And I think sometimes having someone who can come to them more purely as a reader is just so helpful. And to come back to my poems as a reader is something I try to do when I'm revising. I try to give them a little breathing room so that I can do that in part, but you can't ever do that all the way. And there are poems that I am very fond of, but that just don't get along with any other poems. They're just weird sort of one-offs. So I think what Lauren was saying about sort of mentors and figuring out what's too close to almost journaling or stream of consciousness. And at the same time, yeah, giving other people a chance to tell you what the resonances are, both what poems resonate, but also which ones resonate better next to each other. Yeah, so that's not great advice on how to figure out what's in your manuscript for a writer so much as to tell writers to trust other writers.
I love that because I mean, so much of it's a community in the first place, right? Which is, you know, the glory of a room like this. You know, I think probably everybody in this room is a writer themselves. Actually, I know you are. I can see all of your names. Um, I want to kind of piggyback you because you both mentioned this notion of like stream of consciousness, or what for a lot of us ends up just being first drafts, you know, like you're trying to capture an idea, and those tend to be a bit more, say, conversational, I guess. For some people that stays the style, but both of you have kind of a nice like fine-tuned almost, like your poems seem very well worked, for lack of a better way. WJ in the comments said, thank you for your artistry. Both of you are, I think of as like artistic poets, right? Like your poems feel like there's artistry to them, like they're well crafted. So how do you get there? Like, because you both did mention the whole like kind of stream of consciousness versus these ones that are a bit more polished. How do you go about the polishing? You both mentioned a bit what people call beta readers or other writer friends. Is that it, or like how many drafts do you go through yourselves, et cetera, et cetera? Walk us through that a smidge.
Okay, so um what I do is half out of habit and half what works for me. And everybody's writing style and process is going to be different, but this one is mine. So what happened was when I was getting my MFA, the legendary mentor, Dr. Judy Jordan, she was a bit of a harsh stickler, if you know what I'm saying. She started my first workshop in her class. She said, I don't want you to give me a poem. I don't want to see a single poem from any of you that you haven't worked on for at least 20 hours. Not a single one. And then she said, the absolute most legendary poems that you will ever read from anybody will always have at least 100 hours or more. And she was completely convinced of this idea. I had never heard it before, but she was convinced. And she told us, never give me a poem that hasn't been worked on for at least 20 hours. So that is what every single poem in my book has at least 20 hours, but some of them a lot more.
Mhm.
And what I do is first of all, I will have like a collection of poetry collections that I know revolve around a topic that I know I want to write about. So if I want to write about my father, or if I want to write about politics, or if I want to write about any kind of subject, I will research who the absolute pros are, the pro poets, right? And I will get their collections from the library. I'll have a stack and I will read them I will spend anywhere between a day and maybe a few weeks reading them over and over and over. And during that time, I will get inspired and I will write notes. Anytime I get inspired, I always have something that I can write on. And I do that. And I just kind of like unrestrained write everything down, everything that inspires me, it goes on the page. Then the next day, after that's done, I'll go back and that's when I will write with the intention of creating a poem for each of these ideas. Then I will write the poem. Usually I can only write one poem a day. My max is two, and that's if I'm really pushing it. Um, I will write the poem and then I won't look at it for a solid 3 months. I just won't look at it. After I've written my first draft, I break up with it and I do not look at it for 3 whole months. Then after that, I read it again with fresh eyes. And I will spend me that's when I start spending up to 20 hours on the poem. Sometimes it's less than that, sometimes it's more. And then I won't look at it again for about another 6 months. And then I'll revise it after that. And then around that time is when it kind of gets polished.
Hmm.
So that's what I do. And I just keep doing that over and over until I feel like the poem is good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I do not give them as much breathing room as you do, and it would probably be a good thing if I did, but patience is not my best virtue. Stubbornness is up there, which is not really a virtue either. But yeah, I think for me, partly I have just been so um amazed sometimes by the things that there are words for, right? And so partly when I'm trying to describe something or name something or find a sort of likeness between images to use by way of simile or metaphor, yeah, I do a lot of sort of going around the dictionary and sometimes Googling things because I'm like, well, that part of the window, there has to be a name for that part of the window, and there is. And so, and also when I find out that things have these wonderful names, or when I learn a word for something that just knocks me over, um, those don't always end up being poems, but they all go in my poem crumbs notebook. Because, for example, the shyness of the crown, right, is this name for the way that trees of like species just give each other a little space and don't run into each other right at the canopy, the top of the trees. And that, I mean, things like that just knock me out. And so, yeah, part of that, like taking notes, and whether it's notes based on things that I see in other people's poetry or things that I see in, yeah, other kind of strange sources, I hold on to. But I think for me, a lot too, when Mitch talks about sort of polish, it has to do with sound. And as I'm writing, I am always sort of mumbling to myself. And it's funny because I'm terrible at scansion, figuring out like, okay, and here it's iambic tetrameter, and oh, look, here's an anapestic. Like I'm so bad at that. But I can tell how many sort of missing syllables are in a line. And I can tell if there's too much that's jarring or too much that's sort of mellifluous and needs a little more friction. So for me, a lot of it, that kind of polishing has to do with precision of language, but also with sound.
I absolutely love both of those answers, and they're both very impressive. Like I don't have that attention to detail that either of you do. So I love hearing that because like I know I should, right? Those are fantastic. Lauren and Jane, I think on that note, like hearing that kind of deep dive into your process was fantastic, and I think probably a good note to end on because I would like to think most of us want to go right now. Like you're reminding me, I do a lot of my first drafts on my lunch break as somebody who works in education, and so I don't revisit them right away, but like I'm having ideas listening to you for one I did earlier this week. So or late last week, I guess at this point. I don't know. Time is sort of meaningless now. Anyways, Lauren and Jane, thank you so much for being here tonight. And for those just stellar readings. Somebody in the comments referred to it as a set, like they're really nicely constructed reading sets too. Like you're for each that flowed very nicely. Just thank you very much for your time, for your artist and fantastic work and readings. Audience, thank you for joining us. I don't have it handy, but we do have another NAWP event in May. So check the NAWP socials. We do have one coming up in May and June, and then we'll probably take a summer break because we're both teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you,
Thank you,
Lauren. Thank you,
everyone.
everyone else.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next time.